I'm rolling. Hey everybody, my name is Noah Bristol. Um, I'm really excited to be participating in Pro4, the Creatives Workshop. Um, I'm a multidisciplinary artist working in sculpture and installation, and now I'm branching into photography. Today I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you my favorite artist. His name is Olafur Eliasson. You think I would have I did a bunch of preparation. I have a bunch of sticky notes. I have a few different books with his work. You'd think I would have gotten a picture of what he actually looks like. But I didn't. So we're going to start with this. This is a piece of art called The Weather Project. And so this, I think it was in 2003, it was in the Turbine Hall of the Tate Modern Art Museum in London. So you can see all the people sitting on the floor there. And they have this artificial sun that Olafur put up, and there's also a mirror covering the entire ceiling. And then if we turn the page, check out all those people sitting on the floor having a nice experience of nature in an environment that actually is not natural. So it's kind of calling into question, what is nature? How does that work? And that's also a theme that I'm getting into with an art installation that I'm working on in my dailies. I'll post a link to that at some point so you can check it out. The second thing I wanted to show is a piece Olafur did, what was that, 2014? It's called Riverbed. And so for this piece, he and the people working with him in his studio, they, it's fairly self-explanatory. They installed an entire natural environment, a riverbed, and its surroundings inside of the Louisiana Museum in France, or somewhere in Europe, I can't remember. Very interesting. You'll notice there's no plants in here. No plants. And there's this thing happening where the light coming down from the ceiling comes down into the room at all angles. So it's important to note that with a lot of Olafur Eliasson's work, there's, you can look at the pictures and that's great, but that's a step removed from being in the physical environment with the work, because it's not just a visual art experience. There's also an experiential component to it. There's usually something that is involved with your physical bodily experience, and you miss that by looking at nice photographs. And then even now you are watching a video here with me, so that's even another step removed. But just turn the page this way, you can see here is some young kid just running through, and then also I have another book with more pictures of the same installation, and here are a whole bunch of, there's a nice top-down photo in the middle there showing the path of the riverbed, and there are some nice pictures of people engaging with the experience. So just kind of cool. Gosh. 4. So Olafur Eliasson is not just working by himself to make all this happen. He has a team of at least 90 people working with him in his studio. And so this second book that I've been pulling from just now is a bunch of interviews with people in his studio and nice candid photographs. So this is Caroline Egel, and she works with Olafur Eliasson in his studio. And I got this book specifically because there's a lot of information here that will tell you how to run a studio with lots and lots of people helping you make the art. Let's see. So she just kind of lays out how the studio works. She wants to make it clear first that they work as a team, and secondly that they are really doing work that's the real world. It's not a staged laboratory. The studio consists of 3 principal areas. So one is the workshops. That's prototyping, welding, construction, and making things in connection with a second group of people who plan and develop the concepts digitally in computers. Projects aren't necessarily drawn first on the computer and then executed by hand. It can also go the other way around. Then there's a third group which do research and communications. They work on platforms for dialogue and they give context. So I just I loved the fact that they made this book. This book was put out by their studio, and it was eye opening to show me, they didn't start out with 90 people working in their studio. It evolved over time, and so Seth says something in this prompt about, don't pick somebody who is a wild genius, who's pick somebody who you could do what they did. And I really feel like, despite all the wild success of Olafur Eliasson and his team and their studio, like, I look at the work that they do and I can see the progression, and it's like, yeah, they've just been doing their dailies for a lot longer than I have, and so I can see that, yes, like, I could make work like this, and that's encouraging. And so here, if you look in the very front of this book, you will see it's not just, so that's Olafur Eliasson in the middle, and all these people, these are a whole bunch of the people on his team, and they installed a whole bunch of art in Versailles in France, I think, in 2014. So that was a picture of them for that. I've got a little reading here. Let's see. What is the broader potential of art? It says, this was somebody interviewing Olafur Eliasson, and they asked him, from a broader perspective, what is the potential of art? And Olafur answered, the potential lies not so much in the artwork itself as in the encounter between artwork and the viewer and world. The way I see it, there's something profoundly inclusive about looking at and being with art. Art isn't bossy, it doesn't tell us what to think or do. It speaks to our not yet verbalized emotions and connects us with our thoughts and situations from which we may have felt disconnected. It trusts our ability to make sense of its propositions and trusts itself to be a fierce and relevant tool in our lives. Art calibrates our internal compass. It questions and sharpens our ethical and social values, adding a dimension of critical self-reflection to society. It offers a space free of external interests that you can claim as your own. So, yeah, that's pretty inspiring to me, because I have a mission to make work which impacts people positively, and I love the idea of making art that just helps people in a bunch of different ways. And so I look at the work that Olafur is doing with his studio, with all the people he works with, and all the kind of work that they make, and we have a vision that aligns. And so I get a lot of value out of reading the stuff that Olafur has written and learning about how he and his team and their studio operate. What else do I have to show you? Oh yeah, check this out. So speaking in terms of art that can hopefully change the world, maybe even just a little bit, this is a piece called Ice Watch. And so for the COP Climate Summit, they installed these pieces of ice, these Arctic ice chunks. They shipped them from the Arctic Ocean, and they installed them, outside in the city square across from the center where the COP Climate Summit was being held. And so the point with this piece was to kind of, we have all these statistics about climate change. We know that, however many tons of CO2 are being released into the air or whatever, but we don't have any way to connect with that. We don't know what that actually means for our physical experience. And so by putting this ice in this city square, you can see all the people are like having a direct experience with the ice. And Olafur would talk about how when people go up to the ice, they would walk up to it and they would touch it, and they would be, oh, it's cold. Like, it actually feels cold. And, like, we all know that ice is cold, but there's something very different about when you go and you have a direct experience with an object like this, and then you realize the implications of, like, oh, this is something that is involved with climate change, and now you feel more connected to the issue. And so again, I'm making an art installation. I'm working on it in my dailies. I'm excited about it, and that principle of making work that can hopefully connect people to their environment and to their community, that's an idea that I've been working with on the work I'm doing in my dailies as well. So what else do I have to show you? Let's see. I'm going to read from a third book that I have. It's a collection, it's like an art school in a book, and each chapter is a different artist. So here Olafur Eliasson is talking in terms of, he started an art school, and so this is kind of addressed to would-be art students who are directing their own education. That's me, and it might be you as well. And so here's what they wrote. It says, "Dear, rather than a lesson plan, a few of us at the Institute for Experiment decided to write you a letter. We are sorry, but we don't believe in ideal curricula. Actually, we're not sorry, not even a little. We don't pronounce ahead of time what we think we need to know. After we do something, we don't say to others that they should do that thing. We try to learn how to learn. So we learn where we have to go by going. We evaluate and critique ourselves along the way, and together, and always, and all ways. We invite other artists and practitioners to do and think with us. We believe in risking vulnerability and practicing in the robust discomfort of uncertainty. A shared vulnerability is important. We believe in getting out of our comfort zone. We believe in an economy of effort, of making an effort, in rejections that offer alternatives. We believe in thinking doing, in the active imagination as an agent in the world, in shaping and being shaped by the world, in causing the world to wobble differently depending on where we stand. We like the world wobbling differently. School is not a place for safe enclosure of lessons. School is an amplifier for the world. Lessons are not fixed ahead of time or they become rules, dogmatic, concrete, belabored. The syllabus is written after the course ends. The course is endless. The curriculum emerges out of the energy and relationships in the space and the world. It emerges out of the encounters in the world. It emerges out of the social contracts for how we negotiate and engage with each other in the world. It emerges out of questions and feelings, empathy, the politics of experimentation, perceptual awareness, the responsibility of taking risks, and compassion, a philosophy of care. It emerges out of the ecology of thoughts and ideas, being conscious that we are conscious, and the felt feeling of being present. It emerges out of the question, how can art change the world? Our school emerges out of the questions of why. Why make a specific artwork? Why do something one way and not another? Why put work in an institution? What relationships does a work empower? What does a work allow us to understand and feel the conditions and constraints through which systems squeeze the world into different forms, so that works can touch the world? Finding our whys helps us to prioritize content, helps us sharpen a precision with tools. Sharpening our tools helps us to collaborate with others and build openness. Yeah. So, hopefully from checking out some of these images and listening to some of these readings from this, my favorite artist, Olafur Eliasson, hopefully this gives you an idea of why I feel so inspired. Every time I read something that he writes, I feel encouraged to make my own work, which is a really good sign. I feel like whoever it is that you feel inspires you to make work, that I feel like that's a good marker of knowing when it's somebody who really inspires you. Is like, if you feel encouraged to make your own work, then that's a good sign. Let's see, I have maybe one or two things left to show you. In that last thing that I just read, they were talking about how the research never really ends, the learning process never ends, and so this is a picture, nice candid shot of two individuals working for Olafur Eliasson in his studio, and they're working in the research and development department. And you see all those books, and then you see these two big rectangular pin boards, these big cork boards that they have, and they're just pinning stuff into them. And you know, they're a huge, wildly successful art studio, and they're still always learning new things. And so that's, like I said, they've just been doing their dailies a lot longer than I have. And so also that idea of collecting your notes and then presenting them as an integral part of the final piece of art is, again, something that I'm working with in this installation that I'm working on in my dailies. So I think the last thing I have to show you, I mean, there's a bajillion really cool pieces of art that I could show you. Some of them are really hard to just show pictures of because, like I said, you have to be there. It's more of an experience as much as it is a visual experience. But if I can remember where it is, I'm going to end with a really cool picture I like. It's called the model room. And here are all of the little models that they've made throughout, you know, the 2 decades now that they've been making stuff. Just all these little paper models and metal and lighting elements, and if you know Olafur Eliasson and his team's work, you'd know that you could look at a few of these and see that some of them they've actually taken and blown up these little paper models into big full-blown projects, which is also really inspiring. That was my show and tell for the day. I could have made this video at least an hour easily, but I'm gonna cap it. It's already like long enough. If you watched this far, thank you so much. Tell me about who inspires you. I want to know. And if you've got art, I want to see it. That's my attitude. If somebody's got art, I want to see it. And I love to talk shop with people, even if they're working in a different medium. I think that's a big part of why I enjoy being part of this Pro 4 workshop. It's because I get to see what everybody else is doing. We get to cross-pollinate. So it's a lot of fun. Thank you for watching my show and tell, and I'll see you around.